Earlier this year, General Eyre suggested, or was asked the question, is Canada's military ready for the challenges ahead? His response was, no. That's why it's so important that we reconstitute our force, get our numbers back up, and that we get the capabilities in place that are relevant for the future security environment. So, recognizing that the intent and the goodwill is maybe there, we need to hone in on tangible metrics to ensure that progress is actually happening. So my first question is, how many applicants has the CAF had since the reconstitution order was announced?
Hang on a second, I'll look that up because I'd like to give you an accurate number, and I know I've got appearance on that. Somebody's going to point me at it.
If you don't have it right at your fingertips, perhaps you could circle back to us in a note.
30K this fiscal year.
This fiscal year so far, 30,000 people have come through the door and put their hand up, and you know, we're working through those applications.
Okay, perfect. And do we know how many of these applicants are citizens and how many have been through as a result of the permanent resident program?
Yes, ma'am. It's about 70-30. 70% are Canadian citizens. About 30% of the new applicants we've received are coming from permanent residents.
Okay, thank you. And for a successful applicant, what is the average length of time from application to acceptance of a prospective CAF member?
I may have to turn to our officials to tell that because I'm not sure of that amount of time. But I will point out for you, one of the challenges that we have been facing is in what we refer to as background checks, particularly for the cohort of permanent residents. But we've also recognized that they've all been subject to background checks through IRCC in order to become permanent residents. So we're working with IRCC to see if we can use the work that was done there to apply it to expedite this process.
So could you suggest how this process compares to that of our ally nations or NATO allies? And how can we get troops through the doors quicker?
Yeah, thanks. And it is a question I've actually raised with our allies, defense ministers, but also the general's been kind enough to introduce me to a number of people. Almost all of our like nations are facing the same challenge in recruiting. It appears, by the way, and I've been told only the Marines so far are not struggling getting recruits to the door, but it is a challenge. But I think it's also an opportunity.
So it appears to me that the problem is the delay in processing the applicants. So if we have 1 million applicants that are wanting to get through and we can't process them, then like where's the holdup?
Well, there are 30,000 applicants, and we're working through them as quickly as possible. First of all, it's really important when they're hiring, they are also intent on hiring the very best.
So if the
people,
reconstitution
and we're also looking for certain skills that will also enhance the capability of the Canadian Armed Forces.
No, and I respect that. But if the reconstitution effort has focused on recruitment, is there any focus on recruiting the people that actually process the applicants? And is prioritization given to human resources and medical trades?
Yes, ma'am. And I will tell you that's an important part of the work that we are doing in the defense policy update, looking at not only people who process recruits, but in investments in digitizing some of those systems so that we can move more efficiently.
Excellent, thank you. Next question. You mentioned earlier with regards to the Naval Experience Program. How many individuals are currently taking place in this?
I think the number was about, I think there were 142 applicants. I had the opportunity to speak to the Rear Admiral about it. There are, as I understand it, about 345 more people who are in the queue who are being processed.
And how quickly is that onboarding happening? It's
onboarding fairly quickly. They've been able to move fairly quickly in that program. It is also, it's because of its relatively short period of time, there's almost like a probationary period also existing where the Navy can determine if this person's right for the Navy and the person can determine if the Navy's right for them. And so I think there's real value in that program.
Okay, let's talk retention. Recently, your department updated the post-living differential to the Canadian Forces housing differential, which was met with near universal condemnation by forces who have time in. The PLD needed to be updated. However, your department, along with the Treasury Board, did so in a manner that severely impacted long-serving members in a negative way. In some cases, people will actually lose money for getting promoted. And this is including the increase in pay your government brought in at the same time. The provisional post-living differential does nothing to address the actual core concerns of our forces members. So what substantive actions will you take to fix this issue?
we've already done a number of really important things here. First of all, we've added more money into that fund to make it more accessible to more people. There were some changes that were made there because we saw that particularly people in the lower ranks and the lower pay grades were not getting access to the funds that they needed. And so we've made it available to far more of those lower pay grades. But there was obviously an impact on the higher pay grades that did not require that same level of support, but recognizing the impact, and I think this is an important point. You recognizing the impact that it was having on people. We actually implemented a program of phased implementation, so their differential, the support that they receive will be reduced by 1/3 in the first year, 2/3 in the second year.
Okay, perfect. So just in the nature of time, I just have one last question. Have you met with your predecessor and current Minister of the Treasury Board to discuss the burdensome regulations that Treasury Board places on defense? And is there any effort given, or is there any effort to give your department more latitude or agility in making the time-sensitive decisions that are necessary in the CAF without having Treasury Board stamp everything? You can answer yes or no if you'd like.
I have not had an opportunity to speak to my very busy colleague in her new role and I in mine.